Welcome to Markigy. Grab some coffee and let's talk about what's working in marketing, who these strategies are designed for, and how to be customer-centric while we do it.
Hi, this is Leanne with Markigy. Today I'm joined with Danielle Belestra, and we are so excited to learn more about her marketing technology expertise. She is just a wealth of information, and we're excited to have you. Tell us more
I'm
about
so
you,
excited to
Danielle.
be here. Well, I've been in marketing since literally high school. I took my first marketing class in high school, fell in love with it, went and studied it at Northeastern, and then proceeded to be a marketing department for about the first 12 years of my career. And around 2013 is when I got introduced to marketing technology and stood up my first Marketo system and really loved how it explained who I was talking to, how they were engaging with the materials that I was sending them. I got really excited about it. So that's why I really dove really deep into the marketing tech and ops space for the last 10 years and happy to share sort of my experience here.
That's amazing. I didn't know it went that far back with you. That's so cool. Because, there's usually two lanes, right? There's the people that were always in marketing and then the like non-linear people that like were doing something completely off in left field. And I tend to be the latter. So I'm always like, "Wow, you've been doing this the whole time? That's great." Not that I wasn't also doing it the whole time. That was the string I pulled out, but enough about me. You are here to tell us about like what your thing is that you would get on a soapbox about that like just you think that people need to know this about marketing strategies and the way that this all works with like you have such a deep expertise in so many facets of it that I really just want to hear from you what's working and what is the thing that you think people need to adopt.
So I'm going to have a general statement by saying I'm seeing a lot of marketing departments not taking risk anymore. And what do I mean by that? I think we are in a state of analysis paralysis and fear of shrinking budgets and having to prove our value in the marketing space, where really what made us successful was our testing hypotheses approach. So I do believe we actually might be eroding our own customer trust by trying to execute personalization with inaccurate information and assuming a lot that our customers need us, that maybe they know our brand and maybe we think they need our service or product, but they might not. So that's really where I find we're sort of stuck right now. And it's a little scary because in hard times, this is when you have to take risk and you have to test and you have to go out there and try something a little bit different to see if you could break through and if you can help your company turn a potential downslide around.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that people get so caught up in just the brute force metrics of the each individual thing that they forget about the big picture. And to your point, that's the trust with the customer and something that like breaks through the noise and actually resonates with them. So kind of if you have a story that illustrates this to like a finer detail, would you mind sharing it with us?
I have a couple.
Ah,
So
love it.
one of them had to be through social media advertising. So I was talking to a colleague on the phone about, the prospects that we're working with, and it was my cell phone. And after that call, one of the prospects I kept talking about was John Deere. LinkedIn automatically started showing me ads for John Deere. And it upset me so much because, again, I'm very concerned about data privacy. I wanted to understand what setting I had turned on that allowed them to start targeting me with this ad, which I thought was really, really strange. So that was very uncomfortable. It wasn't appropriately targeted because it was really a customer for us, not me being a customer for John Deere. So the context was taken in a strange way to promote that advertising. Another thing I constantly see as a leader in marketing, tech, and ops is I get those cold emails saying they assume, and it's always written in plain text, there's no HTML. They assume that I am a great candidate to purchase their product or service. What really gets me set off is when it's a brand I know well or have used in the past. So, one example of these was a big CRM company had targeted me, and this sales rep started sending me emails saying, I understand you used to know the product. We really think you should move back to us. And I wrote back, just please unsubscribe me from these future emails. He literally wrote back to me, ha ha ha, that's really funny that you wrote unsubscribe. I could not believe it. I just couldn't believe it. I'm like, "What what is going on here?" So, they assume because of my job title, the type of company, I look like their ideal customer profile. They somehow collected my email information, and they just start hitting me because it's a low cost channel through email to try and convert me. Meanwhile, they're eroding the trust. They're a brand I already recognize. I just felt like that was just so poorly executed across the board. I'm hoping it wasn't the marketing team that was executing these campaigns. It could have been a sales enablement tool that allowed these reps to just send who they thought. But either way, somebody should be overseeing this and say, like, Ashley, stop. That actually might be eroding our trust with our customer base. Even though this person's not a customer right now, we don't know where she's going next and if she wants to refer the future employer to us. So you have to think honestly long term, because if we're specialists in these areas, B2B, we might be at another place and that need might come up at that time. You don't want to erode that trust.
There's so much I have to say, especially about this last one. So, one, rogue sales team members that have drank this hard sale Kool-Aid. That is, and it used to be like that. It used to be like that. It's not. It's 2026. It is not like that anymore. It's easy to argue that maybe it never really was like that, but if everything is more expensive, then you need to treat it more preciously. And laughing at somebody who says unsubscribe should never be on the menu of choices. I just shouldn't. Just never.
I mean, there's laws. It's called can spam. I'm sorry.
Even if they do the right thing next by, like, following through on can spam, they shouldn't laugh at you. Like, period, end of story. Like, that is, we live in the day and age of screenshots. Like, frankly, like, that's not a good look. I would have disciplinary conversations if a member of my team behaved that way towards a customer under any circumstances, unless they told a literal joke. Like, the second part to that is, kind of with that, like, sales enablement perspective, is like how the thing that I see that is kind of like that nuanced detail about how we're using technology is, do you think that we're fully enriching customer data enough to show the difference between just like, this is an old recycled lead, or to like give like that full profile that says, hey, this is an old customer, or hey, this is actually like are we lead scoring? What's involved in that lead scoring? What data is in there? Did they pull out like super gnarly like end of contract people? Because that could have gone that way too.
I mean,
Like,
honestly, I could have been in that database 5 different ways because of all my old companies and all my roles in those companies, that who knows if they know my lineage of going from company to company to company. I also think this talks to the antiquatedness of some of the sales tools that are historically in market, because the new tools that are coming out are pretty awesome. And I'm looking at tools like Happenstance, where you can plug in your connections on LinkedIn, your connections from work, and it smartly, intelligently puts together a profile that's very expansive. It tells you what you're engaging with on YouTube. Are you speaking on podcasts? If so, here's a link to the podcast. By the way, here's your website profile. Really strong sales folks do that research. This is why they're great, is because they know so much about you. They get to know you, they create that relationship. The historic tools required somebody to put in those notes, right? In Salesforce or in Dynamics. Like, you have to leave a trail of knowledge so that the next person picking up the phone knows you spoke to so and so. This is the conversation, maybe something personable about me. But in the tools that exist in the past, it didn't give you that context. Whereas now there's some really cool tools that give you that information that if you're a really strong salesperson, you're able to do that research really quickly and have a smart companion giving you insights into what to potentially ask or what things you're most concerned about as a buyer.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing is that now you have AI companions, you have better platforms, you have more data. And while sales used to be just a numbers game, like the circle's getting smaller. And if you piss off like too many people in that small circle, your numbers are over. Like if there's like and there's new that sounds very like you know
Apocalyptic.
apocalyptic. It just sounds very doomsday. Yeah, yeah. But like at the same time, like if you are there, each of these types of SaaS companies are in fact, these small communities, and this is why I believe so heavily in building communities and lifting people up, is because there's so many whisper networks that if you named names on which one that is, now that company's on a podcast getting blasted. And people are already kind of iffy and they're already relying on word of mouth and they're already blah 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 blah. So that trust that gets eroded, it's tough, especially when in B2B SaaS where there's a buying committee and people are looking for a reason to go with their preferred vendor. And if you make it easy for them by being kind of shitty to somebody, it's game over. And that's in perpetuity for, to your point of the next company that you're at and the one after that, but also the people that you're going to go to lunch with,
Yep.
also that Slack channel or 50 that you might be in. Because you know what? There's definitely one email service provider that I see come up on LinkedIn about every 2 weeks. They pissed me off so badly that every single time I see this brand mentioned, I hop in that comments and I'm like, don't do that. It's impossible to cancel. Don't do that. Their deliverability will F up your list. And it's because I feel so strongly about it. So yeah, I might have been like a recurring $30 a month. No big deal. Easy loss, just a number. But now, now it's much larger than that. The
Yeah, and
sphere of influence has grown.
but I think it's even crazier because of the compoundment of the AI and where it's looking and pulling information.
Yeah.
So just as a little side, OpenAI is now offering ads.
Mhm.
So a friend of mine saw something on LinkedIn and it was saying like the beginning price point to get an ad is $1 million. I'm like, that's insane. Let's really see what's going on here. So I go, of course, to OpenAI's website, try and find any information about starting advertising packages. They actually are not publishing anything. So then I went into the tool, hey, ChatGPT, if I want to run an ad on this, could you tell me how much it would cost and what the benefits are? And there it goes. It tells me that the starting cost is around $200,000 and the source was Reddit. I'm like, ooh, okay, this is your product. This is what you're trying to position. A starting price point of $200,000 is going to actually clear out half the potential B2B, at least SaaS space, to try and test you out. Also, the sources were suggesting this is a brand play. This is not a analytic driven play. Like you won't be able to see the impressions, nor are you going to see how much engagement per impression you're getting. So its own product is sort of telling me that to advertise in this space based on third party, not their information, third party information, hearsay, is now the facts I'm making decisions on, which that's going for everybody out there. So if something made it to a Reddit board or some type of public forum where it can be scraped and can be brought back as almost a fact, this is what you're now competing with. It's no longer just your G2 community and the capture community. It's now scraping everywhere, far and wide, that somebody might have anonymously posted on a Reddit community now is a fact inside the AI, which to me is really crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Anytime Reddit is your source of truth, that gives me pause. And it's not that Reddit's a great platform in general. I believe strongly in a lot of things that they do and services that they provide and once again building community. However, However, as like source of truth and fact, like not great for Chat GPT to not just have its own, documentation that it serves when given that prompt. Like it
Yeah.
that if you're so good at like if you're so good.
Well, I guess this problem I'm bringing up
Yeah.
is that everyone, regardless of who you are, you
Yeah.
need to own your pricing story and you need to own sort of the services that you provide yourself. And you need to be spending time going through these other communities where there might be an inaccurate information. I don't know how accurate what I received was. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I would suggest marketing leaders, you have to now spend the time combing through and finding where you're being listed and correct it if you can, or at least get into that conversation to share your first party information. I think it's wild because there was a conference earlier this or late last year, the Martech World Forum in New York, and Scott Brinker showed to get pricing from a CRM tool that doesn't actually list the enterprise pricing. And again, referred to some Reddit information that somebody had posted, God knows how long ago. It could have been 10 years ago. That's saying, like, for you to have this many contacts, this many users, the price point would probably be around this price point. Now that who knows? Like that could be completely inaccurate. So now you have a buyer coming into a conversation with an assumption that like, I really liked you. I did all my due diligence. I want to purchase you. This is what I found out about pricing that you're not publicly showing me. This is where my budget's set at. So like meet me here. And maybe that's not what you cost anymore. It's a hard conversation.
Yeah. And I mean, that's so hard because now we know, not now we know, but we do know for a fact that buyers are doing so much due diligence before they're interacting with a sales member. And so like the sales member's job is really just to almost be an order taker, right? Like with nuance, there is a lot of hard work that our sales teams do, and their job does matter. It's both things are true. There's a lot of nurturing that needs to happen, and information and transparency and expectation setting to set up the sales team member for success. And that is not a successful setup when they are not able to control the narrative about pricing. Other times where when you are unable to control the narrative about, you and I both worked in banking for a while. And in banking, if they're in a publicly traded banking environment, there is a lot of risk with not being in control of the narrative, especially with things that might be harmful or damaging about the institution. So now it's not just AI saying this, it's, an entire ecosystem of sentiment that needs to be monitored. And that's where technology helps.
Hopefully.
I mean, it causes and solves at the same time.
I believe it creates transparency. It's creating transparency. So
Yeah.
in that way, it's great.
So, kind of, I want to come back to the John Deere one because that was something where an algorithm took something that was a signal and misread the signal. As marketers, like, how do we, like, what could we do in our chairs, like, to help make sure that the signals that we're receiving and that we're setting up and that we're going after, what could we do strategically, at the forefront to kind of maybe decrease the occurrence of that type of thing?
I do think understanding and testing personalization is really important. There's a lot of people out there who say they understand personalization that know some aspects of it, but are not deep enough. And when we try and be very granular with personalization, it does not work out so well. So I do think you're going to get, especially in the personalization space, you're going to hit people that don't actually fall in your ICP. What I think is important from a marketer standpoint is if there's a signal that you're receiving, like I was talking to somebody recently and they said, our signal's high, but the revenue is not there. So to me, I would want to talk downstream. I want to find out how the sales pipeline's looking and how well we're doing month on month with customers growth or at least retention from the finance team, because I want to see the whole picture. If we look siloed, we might look great and we're like, we're doing everything we can, but actually the company might not be performing well. So if we're able to get that full picture, if you're a leader, you definitely should have it. You should share that with the rest of your team so that they can also come with awesome solutions about what could this be. There might be something you think of inherently about the market or the economics and macroeconomics that are impacting who you normally talk to. You might be able to still service your ideal customer company, but maybe that decision maker changed. So I think about that too, is like my company that I work for does have relationships or have relationships with John Deere, just not me. So if they were targeting my organization, that's great. But for me, I have no decision making on that. And I believe, especially in the B2B space, because we're buying as committees, as you mentioned earlier, it's hard to know what your role is in each purchase decision. So, as a person in charge of Mark Tech, sometimes I'd be an influencer, sometimes I'd be the champion or the decision maker. It depended. Sometimes the cost was so great that I just had to advocate for it or identify the solutions. And then my CMO had to make the decision and be the final advocate. And if economic times are impacting us, maybe my budget shrinks, but maybe the finance budget grows. And maybe the tool that is solving the problem for all of us, actually, the CFO would be behind purchasing on behalf of us or the CTO. So I do believe you have to be a little bit understand that you will have some waste, but you might have a shuffling of decision makers happening in that organization. And to possibly reach into new pockets, like maybe the CTO or the CFO, as opposed to the CMO or head of HR or head of sales, you might need to switch it up just because those people in tight times might not have as much influence as others in their organization.
So, on one hand, you were the wrong person. But on the other hand, you're also saying to try more people.
I do believe if executed well, this is where like over personalization backfires. But if it's not over personalization and if it's a true brand awareness situation, the fact that I had a conversation and immediately it showed up in my scroll, horrible. But if I had the conversation and the ad displayed 2 days later, it wouldn't have been as obvious in my head that I was listened to. I still wouldn't have actioned on it because it still wasn't an accurate ad for me, but at least there's exposure. I do believe, and this goes back to the foundations of marketing, it's all about reach and brand, and you want to have brand awareness. And that goes back to my earlier statement. Like we're being too pinpointed and we're not taking enough risk to get brand awareness out there and brand awareness in an uncreepy way. People need to know who you are. I've been learning about so many new techs. And honestly, if you've seen the MarTech landscape, I think it's over like 12,000 products out there. This year, I've gotten to play with so many new ones. But if you really looked at it, I probably stayed within about like a 50 to 75 product range that I constantly knew or was focusing on. There's a lot. There's just a lot. And honestly, there might be a better option or solution out there. But if I don't know about it and there's no brand awareness about it, nobody's saying, hey, Danielle, you should check this thing out, I'm not going to find you. I'm not going to look for you. It's hard. So that's where there is this risk that you have to take. Just let people know your name and the solution you're providing. And hopefully it lines up that one day they need you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that like that's a really good point. It's not that they were choosing necessarily the wrong person. It's that the time delay was too quick. While you do want it to be like top of mind and fresh and not everybody is as sharp and remembers the exact conversations, you do need to not treat your customers like idiots. And this is a really common thing that I've seen from leaderships where that want to like brute force things is not assigning a level of consciousness to the consumer. Consumers are smarter than ever, even if they aren't in like Mensa. They don't have to be, right? Like they don't have to be rocket scientists, but what they are is they're much more aware and they care more deeply about their, their perception of the information that they've heard about you. And, to your point of like, there's so many out there, you have to do brand awareness. Brand awareness is not the same as a conversion action. There might be a micro conversion of like going to the website or listening to the full ad or, these other data points, but it is not a one to one sale. And so many leaders in hard times are so thirsty for the like, oh, you heard about us, now give us your money sale. Like that's not how people work. Like, unless you are a throwaway commodity item, then you've positioned yourself very poorly and you don't want that. And that's not B2B. That is an entirely different thing. And so, do you see that as kind of like a situation where you see like how personalization like impacts this or like builds trust, or tell me more about, kind of like if someone just missed the point entirely.
I think there is a need to take a step back and try and see sort of the marketing funnel piece. How many people even know you exist? And then from there, how many of them have engaged with you some way, visited your site, downloaded some materials, attended an event, you saw them at a trade show? I don't know. And then from there, how many are actually starting to raise their hands and indicate that they have this need for you? So it really is go back to the funnel and make sure that you have addressed all those spaces. And you can do sort of a backwards motion to see who is your most profitable customers. Where do they sort of sit? What are they? What type of companies are they? Who usually makes the decisions to buy, but who's also been involved in it? And that also can potentially open you to new markets about where they might be. So, I hope that folks think about sort of the golden rule to slow down and to treat your prospects and customers the way you want to be treated and sold to. And also make sure that like you're doing things that you would not be embarrassed about if it showed up on the front page of a magazine or a newspaper. So, unfortunately, we have human emotions that happen with us, but we need to just, especially in hard times, slow down, go back to the core principles, and make sure that we're just focusing and moving through it methodically.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that like slowing down and methodically looking through the whole funnel part is really the crux of the matter. Because if you have a gazillion leads or numbers, or like the top of funnel is simply massive and then it drops off a cliff and goes nowhere, it's not the top of a funnel. It's just an audience.
Yeah,
Like it's
you
an
just got
entire
all this noise. And also, how does the sales team action off of that? Like, that's just so much stuff. The cost of trying to maintain that, to keep it accurate, to your point, enrich it, make sure you have the right information about the right people. Also, how many times is somebody in the database with all their different jobs? It's a lot. It's a lot of maintenance on the teams. It's a big cost for storing that in multiple systems. There should be conversations about like in our core systems, what should this be? In third party systems, that's fine. Like your web traffic, great. That's fine. you know. But if it's as soon as it starts converting in and you have like a million people in your marketing automation platform, I don't know if you need all those people. Like you really need to think about how many you should like actually continue to store in there and how many should be pushed in once they are truly ready to start engaging and be nurtured into potential sale.
And how many you should retain so that you don't continually bark up the wrong tree. Because there's definitely ones where every few years, you do your due diligence because you got to present options, even if they're fake options. And not like fake options, but just, the decision's mostly been made, but you just want to be like, okay, we're doing our homework. We're double checking. We're going through these processes. I think that if it was my platform and I had a customer that was just kicking the tires every 3 years, I would lead score them differently than I would, somebody who is novel, who is heavily engaged, and who is asking very specific conversion related questions instead of due diligence questions.
I mean, if you are a space leader, like if you're the thought leader, you're creating the best thought content, but for some reason this person's not a customer today, You never know if they become a brand advocate at a future time as a user. So I think about HubSpot back in the day. HubSpot content was the place to learn about B2B in the 2000s, 10s time period. They just wrote the best thought leadership, so accessible, easy to understand. If you didn't really know marketing, it was a great resource for you. And I'm going to be honest, probably half the people that went to those pages and learned from those blogs didn't need HubSpot at the time, but it created good future brand awareness. Now look at where HubSpot is. They're like one of the leaders in the marketing automation space right now. I mean, that is a good long term brand awareness tenure. They really leverage that in a very positive way and nurtures those people really long term. Now, did you need to send them newsletters all the time? No, but the thought leadership was accessible for anyone to read. And it did keep that brand fresh in mind for people who were purchasing or needed to purchase a marketing automation platform when the time was right for them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so many things that they did correctly, especially in retrospect, the thought leadership, the SEO, the events, the community building, and right now from a purely anecdotal, red car kind of bias when you think about red cars, you see red car everywhere, is I'm noticing that they're going after partnership and affiliate plays like more heavily right now because
I
that
just love that. I was at actually a Met game and they actually advertised during one of the innings. They had a full big screen HubSpot ad. I was so proud as a marketing automation person. I'm like, look at that. HubSpot actually did at a home. That's awesome.
there you go. Like that's the thing is like they're doing a lot right and they really do get what they're doing. So we've talked a lot about like some of these things. I kind of want to shift gears to like where's the future of marketing going and where do you think it should be going? And are they the same thing?
I believe it's overwhelming right now. The channel selection, the siloing of audiences, it really requires us to lean back into the fundamentals and to create hypotheses about where our audience is and what message is going to resonate with them. I believe in the last couple of years, we've relied too much on automation and assuming that putting a message in an automatic programming ad buying would do it for us. The cool thing is AI, as it continues to grow, can potentially create the variations of ads that could be in the right channels to say the right message at the right time. So that's where I'm excited about. I think it's overwhelming to think about if you're a new brand and you want to lay the foundation, there's a lot you have to invest in. And what's scary is a lot of people don't want to make those investments. I mean, when you talk about HubSpot, that was huge investments. Marketo did the same thing. They just went in, all channels, huge, huge budgets. Just get out there, get the name known, and create the advocate groups, create all the things that will make it successful. So make sure the events are just top notch. And that really works, but not everyone has those type of budgets. So I think it's going to have to be about try and hypothesize, prove your campaigns, and then just iterate on them and keep growing and get that budget back up and growing for yourself. That's where I think we have to go in order to succeed in this new, extremely siloed, loud environment as marketers.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's fair. Counterpoint. I see how AI removes some of the costs and actually makes it cheaper for us to do this. And I know that that's like, drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit, but, you do have to invest in
Mhm.
something at some point in some manner, whether that's babysitting the AI, maybe that's the platforms, maybe that's the channels, maybe that's the market research ahead of time. Speaking with actual people, not presumed people. But it I see how there's going to be a lot smaller, scrappier teams that are going to be able to break through the noise. To your point, because they're much better at reading the room than just brute forcing it. But that's a whole new episode to debate on. All right, behind the curtain, what is a question someone should ask you but they don't? And I'll re-explain what I mean by this. There's always something where someone's like asking about X, Y, and Z, and it's somewhere so far down the journey that they have completely missed the point and they need to start at the beginning. Or maybe it's something about you as a person that you're working on, like a project or an aspect that people just underestimate or don't know about you that you really want to talk about. So, what is a question that someone should ask you, but they don't? And then what's the answer to it?
So, as a marketing technologist, I think everyone assumes to just jump into the technology and ask, will this solve the problem for me? But what they really should be bringing to me is the problem, because sometimes it's the people or process issue. And sometimes it's not the right solution to throw technology at it. So, I love solving problems. I'd rather hear the case of the problem and just sit there and help sort of look at it from a couple of different directions before solutioning. So I would love for people to just come and ask me, hey, this is my challenge. We're trying to get here. How could you help? Like that's sort of where I want to start. Not at the hi, I already purchased this and I'm having problems. Like, well, maybe you shouldn't have bought that. Whoops.
Yeah. Whoops. Maybe you should have asked, can I do this in a spreadsheet first? Do I care? Is there a process? Is this like actually providing value? Or did I just see a shiny toy that does this thing that, someone's buddy is an investor in? And now we have this tech debt to try and make this work. Sorry,
Yeah.
maybe that was just a, real life example. So, all right, if someone wants to ask you about their problem or get a hold of you or kind of continue this conversation, where do you hang out? Where's the best places for people to access you?
I am definitely on LinkedIn, so you can find me there. You can book a meeting with me. I have my scheduler up there on my LinkedIn profile, so you can schedule some time. But feel free to message me and to start the conversation there. If you want to learn more about me, I do have a website, daniellebelestra.com, where I keep sort of my thoughts and observations about what's happening in the space of marketing ops and marketing in general, as well as past events and podcasts such as this one.
Awesome. And then for people that might be just listening to this, you spell her last name B as in boy, Alestra. So I know that I have a weird email. If you do want to get a hold of me to continue the conversation, I'm also chronically online on LinkedIn. But you can email info@markigy, markigy.com. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being here, Danielle.
Oh, I had
And
so much fun. This was great.
I am so excited. I can't wait to see what you're up to on LinkedIn. And I think that everyone should just go and add her. Even if you're not ready for a conversation, you should just see what she's up to because it's fun, cool stuff. And I think that there's a lot of value there. Thank you for listening. Like, subscribe, review, do all the things that help podcasts out. Bye.